Porca with Tomás McCarthy on WLR.
With Hooper Dolan Insurances. For business insurance you can rely on. More info at hooperdolan.ie.
So looking at the club scene, and the Western Intermediate Hurling Final and 2 senior football semi-finals are all down for decision on Sunday in Fairfield. And to preview all 3, Tony Ryan from the Dungarvan Observer is here in our Virgin Media broadband studio in Dungarvan. And Tony, the Blue Ribbon event in the Western calendar is Ballysaggart versus Ardmore. It throws in at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon. Ballysaggart are back at this stage again after being beaten by Clashmore 12 months ago. But is it a surprise to see Ardmore as their final opponents?
I think it is really at the start of the year. Nobody would have envisaged that would be a Ballysaggart and an Ardmore final. Ballysaggart maybe after last year, but Ardmore are there on merit alone. And they played very well, especially in the game against Ballymena. It was one of the best intermediate games of the year, and there was a lot of good intermediate games during the year. But this one between Ballymena and Ardmore was exceptional. And they have Peter Cody back in their camp now, honing their skills, their hurling skills and that. And that can be seen. He's been with a lot of clubs around the place. I can see their improvement. So it is a surprise from the start of the year, but having seen them in recent weeks, it's not a surprise that they're back in the final. Yeah,
I suppose that Ardmore-Ballymena game was a classic, while the Ardmore-Clashmore semi-final was more of a dogfight, Tony. But, the Gartlands really came to the fore that night. They got 10 points. How instrumental have they been in their campaign so far?
They have really. Over the years, it has been the Prendergast, and the two boys they're running around like young fellas. Be honest about it, their fitness is exceptional at around the 40 mark. But the Gartlands are coming through in that same vein, and David especially at midfield is an excellent midfielder, well able to score from play and well able to score from frees, from place balls, whereas John will always pop up with a few scores and a goal as well. So like Ardmore have good hurlers spaced around the field. Yeah,
has there been a little bit of a handover there, Tony, from the old guard, we'll say the Prendergasts and the Hennessy's to the Gartlands now, and the likes of Kenny Murphy and James Flavin really driving it on?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the Hennessy's are all but gone, but I think Richie and Niall are back in there, and they've given the Hennessy's given tremendous service, But I don't think that the Prendergasts are finished just yet. They kind of remind you, like you were saying, when Austrabily finished in the football. The Prendergast finished with Ardmore, because I must definitely say that what I saw of the Mountain to Field, the way their fitness and their hurling and football at the moment is as good as ever it was. So eventually Mother Time will catch up with them, but not this year. No,
you'll never get to the end of the Prendergast or the Hennessy's, that's for sure. And when you look at Ballysaggart, Tony, have they been the form team of the championship to date?
They have, and they were unlucky in the sense not to win it last year. A little bit of indiscipline at the end. I thought maybe cost them a replay and that, but they're also they've learned from last year, and they've got a good coach in. I know Bobo Maher is the main man as manager, and he's a very good man to have on the sideline. He's always very good on the sideline. But they have in Frank Flannery, who's been around the country as coach, and you can see the improvement in some of the average players there as well. That he's doing a great job, and as well as that, of course, he was with Ardmore when Ardmore last won the title. So he'll know the Ardmore players inside out as well, So I think that is an advantage for Ballysaggart. But there's no surprising that they're in the final, except that in the semi-final, on Ryan shot about 10 wides in the first half, and it went down to the last pocket game. Of course, on Ryan were up senior last year. But as you say, it is the Blue Ribbon Championship. It's a fantastic championship. There's rarely a bad game in it. Even the relegation game was super above the Dungarvan grounds. Something like 421 to 321, It's probably the best championship in Waterford at the moment.
And one of the best games was that Ballysaggart on Ryan game, Tony. It took a late Kieran Bennett point to settle in favour of Ballysaggart. Will that sort of a win really stand up now coming into this final?
I think it will, yeah. And if it is a close game again, you'd imagine like who is likely to get a winning score? Would it be Ardmore or Ballysaggart? I think Ballysaggart have the top 3 there. That will be capable of getting the score. Like Stephen Bennett did fantastic work in the last day, and he just looked out for Kieran. Maybe on Ryan player should have picked up Kieran. Maybe it's not as simple as that, but if he just lofted that point over the bar from over by the sideline. So then again, you'd be hoping that the 3, or Ballysaggart will be hoping that the 3 Bennetts play well, because they are an integral part of the team. They're not a 3-man team by any means, but they are an integral part.
Yeah, does that Bennett factor kind of tip it in Ballysaggart's favour for you, Tony?
I think it does. It does on the hurling wise, but then you don't know what way the weather is going to be either, and might change the game around. It mightn't be free flowing hurling, if there's good open hurling, that I think they would. But having said that, Ardmore have some fine players as well. As you said, the Gatlands, I thought James Kennedy was very good the last. Kenny Murphy is always there. And Richie Hennessy and Niall Hennessy kind of back in form.
Yeah, could Seamus Keaton pick up one of the Bennetts perhaps?
Maybe. I think he lined out as centre back, I think, the last day. So going on that, he probably will. They had Shane centre back, Billy Saggart the last day. You can play Shane anywhere. And he'd be very dangerous up front. And Kieran, I think he got 4 or 5 points from midfield. But Ardmore will require a big game from Seamus Keaton. I think if they have to pull through. He is a good hurler, but he has to show it on Sunday. So
we could have maybe history in the making, Ballysaggart lifting their first title, perhaps?
We could have history in the making, and we could have a second Western final this year. It could go to a replay. I think there's very, very little to separate these two teams.
Very good. Well, it's all underway at 2:30 on a Sunday in Fairfield. The Western Intermediate Hurling Final between Ballysaggart and Ardmore. Looking at Sunday evening, then Tony, a double header of senior football semi-final. Strably versus Rathcormac at 5:30 is the curtain raiser. It's 18 years, hard to believe it, since Rathcormac were last in a county final. From what you've seen so far, Tony, are they ready to take a big scalp like Strably?
I don't think they are. On what I've seen this year, I think that they're inconsistent. They can be very good as they were against Ardmore out in Bushy Park, and then I thought against Galtier the last day they were fortunate enough at the end to come out with the win. And I think this is what's hampering them the last few years. But it's time for them now, as I say, to grow up, because we keep talking about the under 21 titles. That's beginning more and more to be a few years ago. But have they the potential, the capability? They have. But I think that they'd have to show us on a big stage like this against Strably. And I think an especially exceptional game would need to come from Conor Murray. He's a very talented footballer. I think if he shows his best form, I think it could go Rathcormac's way.
And look at Strably, they really got out of jail against Clashmore. Like a couple of the big three sides, Tony Gray got a late equaliser to bring the game to extra time. Are there signs there that maybe they're not the force of old?
I'd say they haven't the same players that they have of old, and I think they admit that themselves. But they're still very hard to beat. And they brought on James Cormac they brought on as a sub who had played in the junior game the night before, and he got the winning goal. So they have the spirit within them, and they have the leaders. I thought Tony Gray was exceptional the last day, and Michael Welch on the other end of the field as well, and the Hearns and the Powers. So like if you beat Strably, like you'll have earned it. And they've been here. How many times have they been here in this actual situation? Rathcormac is their first time in 18 years. Strably know the situation inside out. And to me they would be the slight favourites to advance. Yeah,
I think the kind of that spirit and that will to win in the Strably ranks will carry them through.
But I think both teams need to improve on their recent form.
Absolutely. Then looking at the second game, Tony, is Denier versus Ballynacourty at 7, a repeat of last year's semi-final. I suppose Denier also got out of jail in the fact they were 10 points down against Ryan. But are they weakened by the fact here they're going to be without Michael Moore and James McGrath, and they're also coming just 7 days after playing a hurling relegation playoff?
Yeah, well, those two lads are injured, but on the plus side they'll have Shane Welch back and Jimmy Byrne. But they prefer to have the four of them playing. And as you say with the hurling, I mean, it is well known, really, that I say most people would agree that the hurling should be finished off this weekend. For both Ballyduff have a football match as well, an important football match next Saturday. And I think that the GA calendar is fixture based and it's not player based or club based. And really, like, players should be given the opportunity to prepare for an important match, especially a county senior football semi-final. You should be given 2 to 3 weeks to prepare for that. And still, no matter what happens next week, then they'll have to go back and play the hurling again. So I think there's unfortunate on the Denier, but I would say the second half that they played the last day will be after gelling them together, and there's a good spirit back in them, But this is like a local derby that plays each other so much. The Denier and Ballynacourty, of the two teams, I think, of all the teams that played in the quarterfinals, I think Ballynacourty were the more impressive. And rightly so, because they're doing best under age the last while back, so I think they would be slight favourites to win if they played to their full potential. But the Denier are county champions, and county champions don't go away easy. Yeah,
who will likely to pick up Conor Gleeson in the Denier full forward line?
Well, I think they have a choice in Brian Luby or Conor Prunty. But if Conor Gleeson is in the inside line, I say it's Brian Luby. And the save he made of a goal, and in extra time against like Rossney and Paul White going through like
just at the end of the normal time.
It's the normal time. Yeah, he's a fantastic defender, so he would, and then maybe would leave Prunty free then further out, because he'd be more of an addition further out, So, but they have a choice, any of the two of those, I would say.
And I suppose the freshness, having 3 weeks to prepare, is also in their favour, Tony.
Well, they have, and in fairness to them, straight after the hurling match with Dungarvan, they got back playing. Within 2 days, they started playing football. So they're totally focused on football, and that must be an advantage. And as well as that, last year they were unlucky in a way not to beat Denier towards the end of the semi-final. So I said Ballynacourty by a small bit.
Tony, thanks very much for dropping into studio today, and enjoy the matches on Sunday.
Thanks, Tomas.